Okay, councillors, directors, welcome. I'll open the meeting with acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're on here today, the Wiradjuri people, and pay respects to their elders, both past, present and emerging. I declare a declaration of webcasting. I inform those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast, and those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. I notice that all councillors are present, so there's no apologies. Any declarations of interest, councillors?
I don't have a declaration of interest, but I do declare, Mayor, that on page 2, item number 13, it says closed council, but there's nothing further under that particular agenda item, and I notice that we do have documents in the back. I'm just bringing this to your attention, especially for those who are looking at the website and looking at our agenda in the future.
Could you bring that to my attention again, please, councillor?
So page 2, right at the bottom, it says item 13, closed council, but there's nothing underneath it stating what's it referring to. And we have got documentation at the back of our agenda talking about closed council, but there's nothing in the order of business. And those who are looking on the website... I take your point, councillor. Yeah, so I'd just like to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
If you could, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes, councillors. Somebody move? Move Councillor McAndrew, seconded Councillor Goodwin. Those in favour? Against? Against. Councillor Leslie against. Commemorations and announcements.
I have one, Mayor Thompson.
Thank you, councillor.
Stan Miskovich, he recently passed on. He was a well-known Lithgow resident, very much involved in Gory Ban and with the Catholic Church. I'd just like to bring our, condolences to him and his family who are local here.
I have two. Just firstly, I want to sadly acknowledge the recent memorial for Senior Constable Clarence Roy Peary. Older people like ourselves will recall that Senior Constable Clarence Roy Peary was shot dead 60 years ago this month, near Capity, at Running Stream near Capity. So, Jews Creek, near Capity. And I attended the memorial on your behalf, Mayor, and on Council's behalf, and had the opportunity to talk to and meet the family. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, Mayor. 60 years, it's gone pretty quickly. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago. I was only a small boy at the time, but I recall the sense of loss and horror and concern and disbelief that something like that could happen in a small community like Capity. Mayor, the second acknowledgement I want to make is to acknowledge and congratulate Mr Buckins and his staff in relation to the recent Fish River pipeline break. I know all councillors were emailed a picture of that breakage, a huge pipe, and I just want to make the point that although it wasn't council's responsibility or council's fault, it affected a lot of our residents and certainly in our towns and villages, and I just want to acknowledge and thank Mr Buckins and his staff, and people that were affected have raised it with me, the quick response and the good response by our staff in dealing with getting water to our people that were affected.
Very, very well said. And I think the rapid response team need to be acknowledged in that as well, because they did a wonderful job supplying water to those that didn't have water. Very much so.
I also have two
Councillor Statham.
items. Yes, like Councillor McAndrew, I was invited to the service at Capity for Clarence Peary. I was also asked to read a poem on behalf of the family. I think it was a very touching service, and a service that would have been quite difficult for three of his four children to witness. And on Saturday, we had a presentation of the unveiling of the plaque for Ron Bidwell from Portland. I don't believe that Portland would have all the lovely signs on the walls without Ron's incentive to start that project with the walnuts. So his family were very delighted to have a couple of hours in Portland. Pouring rain, but still, it took place and it was a pleasant afternoon.
Thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'd also like to praise Mr Buckins and his team. I know on the Saturday that while Mr Buckins was dealing with the Fish River drama, he had a drama in the main street of Wang and Portland, and he responded. His teams responded excellently. A job well done, and they need all the praise we can put on that team.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any other councillors? Okay, we shall move on. Public forum. I have one letter in public forum which I shall read out. Public forum, councillors, council executives, citizens of Lithgow. To introduce myself, my name is Gay Mason. I've lived in Lithgow for over 40 years. I own land that backs onto Baldy Mountain, which is the hill at the bottom of the end of Tank Street. It has very little vegetation and almost no trees on it when I bought the land, hence the name. And the vegetation has been sown by wind and animals. I've experienced that hill being burnt several times and regrowing. Now, however, you are in Lithgow, when you drive north towards Main Street, you drive towards burnt hillsides. You see the ground on the lower areas of the hills is green, and that there are some black tree trunks sprouting fuzzy new growth, and there are many black tree trunks still standing but not obviously growing. Every time I see those hillsides, I am reminded of the days those trees and hillsides burnt. I recall the smoke, the flames, the feeling, the dread of the danger that filled the valley on the 21st of December 2019. The animals and birds that used to live there, many of which have been killed by the fire. Lithgow has experienced good regular rainfall since the fires went through, but there is little regrowth in many areas. What has grown is a mix of grasses, weeds, bushes, and some tree regrowth. Lots of coot and asters, some wattles, lots of bracken fern. At the recovery sessions following the fires, I asked about revegetation to replace the burnt trees and was advised to wait and see what come back unassisted. I've waited and seen, and the regrowth is very disappointing. We have seen thousands of trees disappear since the fire, fallen or cut down because they were dangerous or in the way. There are hundreds more that will fall or have died and remain standing. Hectares of undergrowth, bushes and ground cover plants are gone, and regrowth is very slow or non-existing in places. Scientists continually tell us that the best way we can do to help lessen climate change is to plant more trees. The flip side of that is that we need to plant massive amounts of trees to counter the local effects of the fire. At the very least, we need to get rid of the weeds that have grown in the aftermath to give the regrowth the best chance to grow and provide habitat. Lithgow LGA has received millions of dollars from the government in grants for bushfire recovery. Much of that money has gone to pay for tree removal. At least some of the burnt hillsides are owned by council and their responsibility. I ask that council act to revegetate the burnt areas that they own and contact owners of the other burnt hillsides, directing them to undertake vegetation of their land. The country needs it, the birds and animals need it, the community needs it for their recovery. I need it for my recovery. It's the right thing to do. Thank you. Councillors, there is no Merrill minute, so we move on to the business paper. Notice of motion will Lerrowing Sewage Treatment Plant. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Stephen Leslie speaking down here at the end of the aisle. This spill occurred 14 months ago, and the Merrill Minute, seeking an enforceable undertaking, was 7 months ago, and I suspect this motion of mine is about to disappear. But for the record, I'd like to read it, which is that I move that Lithgow Council bring down a comprehensive written public report on the environmental spill of over 12,000 litres of caustic soda, sodium hydroxide, that occurred at the Wallerawang Sewerage Treatment Plant in August, September 2019.
Mayor, I have in front of me the recommendation from the notice of motion. Are we now talking about a different recommendation? I have the recommendation of the notice of motion.
That's exactly what I'm reading.
Okay.
Thank you for the interruption, Councillor McAndrew. Would you want me to start again, just to put it into context?
Yeah, I would, yes, thanks.
Before you proceed, could I second it? Thank you.
Right, that Lithgow Council bring down a comprehensive written public report on the environmental spill of over 12,000 litres of caustic soda, sodium hydroxide, that occurred at the Wallerawang Sewerage Treatment Plant in August, September 2019. This report is to include, but not be limited to, a time frame of the spill, procedures put in place to ensure that spills of this nature do not occur again, and a history of previous compliance failures at Wallerawang and other sewage treatment plants. The report is also to report on the expenditure involved in the clean-up operation, the amount, who authorised the expenditure, and from which budget item the money was drawn, when the expenditure was reported to the Council, and what projects have been cancelled or deferred to pay for the clean-up and other associated costs incurred. My motion stands. What I want to see is a report that actually includes the words, I acknowledge we have a report coming as item 2 from the General Manager. But what I would like to see is a report that actually includes the words 12,000 litres of concentrated caustic soda. Did you know that the words 12,000 litres has never once appeared in the Lithgow Council report? Compulsory EPA requirements, yes. The Mayoral Minute of March 2020, the 9th of March 2020, no. The following General Manager's report, no. I'd also like to see a report that includes a table of expenditure, a list with the word total at the bottom and a number against it. Let's make it easy for people to actually know what this environmental disaster has cost the people of Lithgow. Yeah, and yes, Mr Mayor, we could actually even call that total, expended to date. It would be nice to get a figure that actually says something other than zero, other than nil. I'd like to see a breakdown of different costs, the cost associated with the clean-up, cost associated with the repairs, and the cost associated with training or retraining. I don't believe we're getting that in the next report. What I'm asking for is a comprehensive, written, not verbal, public report, and I actually look forward to getting one.
Councillor Ring.
Look, I believe a lot of the issues have been dealt with in the next report. If you read the enforceable undertaking, it provides a very detailed timeline, and it does provide very good costings in it.
Thank you. Any other councillors want to speak to this? I shall put the notice of motion in. Those in favour of the notice of motion? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Ring, Councillor Statham, Councillor Leslie. Those against? Councillor McAndrew, Councillor Smith. I declare the motion carried. General Manager's report.
Mayor, happy to move.
Thanks, Councillor McAndrew. Seconder? So, thank you, Councillor Statham. Councillor McAndrew.
Mayor, before I speak to it, I've read the report, and it's quite a good report, and it details exactly what occurred and what response we took to it. But the report doesn't talk about the confidentiality process. If I could ask the GM to report on that, because it's important. I recall quite clearly during the whole time of this issue that, we were clearly, and I recall yourself, Mayor, being a bit frustrated that you weren't able to say too much because of the confidentiality attached to the process or the undertaking that we were to give to EPA. So if the GM could just, give me some background on that, then I'll speak to the recommendation.
Thank you, Mr
Mr
Mayor.
General Manager.
And thank you for the question. Mr Mayor and Council, in these matters, there are at least two pathways that can be pursued by an environmental regulator. And just to really simplify that, one pathway is litigation, which can be adversarial and uncertain. The alternative pathway is what I would call a negotiated solution. The latter of these was followed in this case. So the EPA and Council negotiated a resolution of the matter. Through this process, the Council and the EPA negotiated for what I consider a better outcome. Ultimately, those outcomes or terms are expressed in agreed terms which are conveyed in a legal document and enforceable undertaking. One of the consequences of this pathway is that the negotiations are confidential. In many ways, it mirrors the other pathway of litigation, and that is that you don't in public reveal the case for and against and the legal arguments that you will take into a court. So they mirror one another. So the consequences of either pathway, but certainly the enforceable undertaking, is that the negotiations are confidential from a public perspective until they're completed. However, and it's important to note, the facts and the agreed outcomes are then forever public. With the enforceable undertaking now finalised, that's why I brought this report to the Council this evening. Now is the right time to bring the report to the Council, and it needs to be read, and I think it can be read. I think it can stand on its own feet with the salient facts, but it needs to be read together with the enforceable undertaking.
Thank you, GM. Thanks, Mayor. Look, I believe it's an honest and open report, and the explanation of why it's taken so long has just been given by the GM. As he said, it's appropriate now to do that once the undertaking has been signed off and in place. I just want to quote from page 7 of the report, in relation to conclusion. And I quote, "The incident at the Wallerawang STP resulted from a faulty fitting which failed after 7 years when it should have had a much longer effective life. And importantly, please note the Council has now been advised of other examples of similar failures." That's one of the issues I can recall during the reports given to us that the bund failed as well, but I'm also well aware that that bund was put in place by Council on the direction of Public Works, I believe, at that stage. And that bund, that system and that bund that was put in place by us is one that is across all council areas as well, and I understand that's being looked at as well. So, yes, it's a hard lesson that we've learnt, as the report talks about, as lessons have been learned from the incident. On balance, council will be better for this experience. But I want to make the point that the failures of the systems resulted in something that not only this council has in place, but what other councils have in place. And at that stage, it was working and had been working, but for some reason or another, both the bund and the faulty fitting failed. So I want to. It's been a good report by the GM. I think it covers all the issues that need to be covered. I note the comments about costing. The costings are in there. The process of the enforceable undertaking and the process of that is in there. I'm quite happy with the report, and I think it answers, and it, as the GM has said as well, it goes hand in hand with the public enforceable undertaking that was negotiated with the EPA. I'm happy and satisfied with what's been put.
Councillor Statham.
Yes, I think it's a good report in terms of the enforceable undertaking it's out in the public, it's transparent. There was just one little thing that I wasn't sure about. In the commentary, it has the fitting broke and the material leaked to a bund. Then down a little bit further, it's got upon closer examination, it was found that historically a valve had been installed so that it turned opposite to the normal, and this allowed the material to leave the site of the STP. I've heard rumours about both of those situations. Could I have clarity on which exactly happened through you, Mayor
Look,
Thompson?
Councillor Statham, I was going to get Mr Buckens to speak to this irrespective, especially on what's in brackets in the conclusion where it says, please note that council has now been advised of other examples of the similar failures. Could you please answer Councillor Statham first, if you could, Mr Buckens, about the bung and the valve?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. It was a sequence of all the events. The bund failed. There was a valve that is used to actually operate that bund. The guys had operated that and closed it. The other valve on the roadway that discharges to the environment closed in the opposite direction. Inadvertently, they had opened it. Second question? We've been made aware that it occurred at Wingecarribee Shire Council at one of their STPs. They were fined $100,000 in that instance, exactly the same, discharged to the environment. There's been another council, and I won't name them, simply because of confidentiality. And there's been a number of enforceable undertakings on the public register of the EPAs that also indicate the exact failing of the same tank that wasn't contained within a bund. It's a common failure of these tanks that is becoming more apparent. We're now in the process of pulling them all out and replacing a whole lot. We've now had 3 as well. The 2 were caught quickly, and the response was very different to what had occurred in this instance. But
Coleman?
I don't wish to speak to or against the report, but I do have a question for Mr Buckens, if he can come back. You mentioned the faulty fitting in regards to the tank, and now you're having to remove the tanks and replace the tanks. What sort of cost is that involved? And the other question I have is, if there's a faulty fitting that's relating to these tanks, those who built the tanks, are they not liable? Can we not go back to the manufacturer and ask whether or not they should be coughing up some of the inconvenience to our ratepayers?
Yeah. Look, the General Manager's going to answer this one. Thank you.
Mr Mayor and Council, the report summarises what I consider to be the salient facts. And it would be imprudent of myself or any of the officers, and with great respect I say the Council, to ad-lib about this incident. We've worked very closely through this, through what is a legal process, with lawyers on both sides, and there are agreed terms. And the report openly and honestly conveys the facts, especially when read alongside the enforceable undertaking. And with great respect, I don't believe that we should just be finding our way through this through an ad-lib form of inquiry. So I just say that. I ask the Council to rely for the moment on the report and on the enforceable undertaking.
Thanks, Mr General.
So my questions won't be answered, Mayor. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I take on board exactly what the General Manager said. I think that is appropriate. If he so wishes, he will come back with an answer to you at a later date, I would think.
Mr Mayor, could I ask a question about the timing of these things? The mayoral minute, your mayoral minute was the 9th of March, seeking this enforceable undertaking, but on the 7th of June, we received undertaking Lithgow City Council Environmental Protection Authority executed on the undertaking and signed off by the General Manager. Is that when this undertaking was entered into, or has it been something later? Because that's 3.5 months ago. So now we've got the report on tonight's meeting. Have we got the report on tonight's meeting because something new has come, or has it just been a 3.5 months delay since the undertaking was occurred?
I would believe that the enforceable undertaking would take a period of time to be evolved, but I shall once again ask the General Manager to, because I know that it took a little while before it was definitely signed off on, so.
Well, we've got the date. Sorry. We have the date, 7th of June.
I understand that.
No, Mr Mayor, the enforceable...
Page 13.
Mr Mayor, the enforceable undertaking is attached to the business paper, and it has a date that it was enacted. My recollection, I'm not wanting to flick across to it, my recollection is it was the 7th of July, but Daniel? 7th of July.
My apologies, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
7th
So
of July, my apologies.
it was enacted on the 7th of July. Quite frankly, we haven't stopped since then in giving effect to the enforceable undertaking. There are a whole series of actions, all of which are spelled out in the schedule. So we've been concentrating on that. And as soon as we're able, and that's this evening, to bring a definitive report, we've brought it to the council. Of course, the councillors have also received, from my recollection, a copy of the enforceable undertaking at an earlier stage as well.
Mr General Manager. Councillor Ring.
Mayor Thompson, look, I think it's a good report. It does outline what's going on. It's very factual. The enforceable undertaking, as I said earlier, gives a very detailed timeline of events. Look, it happens. It's done. If we'd gone to court, I am sure that the costs that would have been borne by this community would have been significantly higher. The enforceable undertaking allows us to improve. I think it's a good outcome for the community, for council, and I think going forward, the Operations Committee has the opportunity now to look at how we performance manage into the future our sewage management treatment plants and look at the bigger strategic picture. I think that's very important. So I think we just need to move on. It's happened. We're not the only council this happens to. We're not the only council that it will ever occur to. We just need to move on.
Look, councillors, from where I sit, I think our Director of Water and Wastewater should be congratulated for negotiating an enforceable undertaking. I think it saved us a huge fine, and it put us in a position where we can put procedures into place so these sort of things don't happen again. Irrespective, it was a chemical spill, it had to be rectified. Money had to be spent to fix it, so it doesn't matter which way you look at it. It had to be fixed. So I congratulate Mr Buckins on negotiating the enforceable undertaking. Any other councillors want to speak to this?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I have an amendment. I'd like to move a point 2, and that is that Lithgow, so we make that the report be received as point 1, and point 2 is that Lithgow Council apologises to the citizens of Lithgow and particularly to the citizens of Wallerawang for the release of 12,000 litres of concentrated caustic soda from the Wallerawang sewage treatment plant into the environment and waterways.
Have I got a seconder?
I'm happy to second that.
Do you want to speak to it?
I don't wish to speak to it either, Mr Mayor.
Any other councillors want to speak to this?
Just a question on it. What does that mean for any comeback from anyone in relation to it? I thought that the beauty of tonight is the report is there, the enforceable undertaking is there, it's now a public document. An apology at this late stage, does that open up council to further costs? That's my question.
Mr Mayor, the enforceable undertaking has been advertised, publicly advertised in the local media, in the Herald. It will stand forever and a day on the public register and likely on our council website. I don't wish to enter the debate, but I observe in the enforceable undertaking that the legal agreement with the Environment Protection Agency is that the material did not leave the property and it did not leave a small restricted watercourse. It did not enter other watercourses. It happened. Of course we regret it. We sincerely regret it. But there was no malice or intent. And we put on the public record, for the public in Lithgow, Wallerawang and beyond, our regret and the true facts. And I really caution about going further.
I shall put the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? Councillor Coleman and Councillor Leslie. Those against? Councillor McAndrew, Goodson. You got those? Fair enough. Thank you.
I just wanted to speak to the original.
You can go back and speak to that now, because he hasn't had his right to reply as yet.
Okay. There's been a lot of commentary, and I just think the most important thing to take out of this report is that Council states it's addressing and has addressed areas of need with urgency, which will only improve operational function of the wastewater operation. So mistakes have been made, they've been rectified, and I think we need to move on.
Councillor McAndrew, do I reply?
Yeah, just very briefly, I couldn't have put it better than Councillor Goodsall just put it, but let me repeat myself. It's an honest and open report. It has the costing within it, and equally beside this report is the enforceable undertaking, which is now public and can be read by anyone. I think it satisfies the issue.
Thank you. I shall put the motion then. Those in favour of the motion? Unanimous. Thank you. Oh,
I'm just getting ready to move the next one, so.
I'd like to move something if council...
building a farm stay.
Yeah, I'd move, Mayor, that
amendment?
I'm moving that not the recommendation that's in front of us.
And I like to move something else as well.
I'm moving, Mayor, that, and I've gone back and had a good look at the decision.
Of order.
I've got to, excuse me, Councillor McAndrew, Councillor Goodsall was in there first, so I've got to take that. You will second it, Councillor McAndrew? No.
No,
And I'd
no.
like to move something else as well.
Well, Councillor Goodsall, what are you moving?
I'd like to move with an amendment that DA
You can't move it with an amendment.
I'd like to...
You want to change the recommendation?
I do.
What I, just before we go into this, councillors, I want you to remember that
Yeah,
that we have rejected this
yes.
at a previous council
Yep.
meeting, and that rejection came back with a report
Yep.
of why we may be able to reject it. Now,
And that's what I was trying to get to, Mayor.
yeah, well,
because
I just want councillors to remember that before
Yes.
they go into this, because you could be looking at rescission motions and all sorts of things. So once again, Councillor Goodsall, you want to change the recommendation?
I do.
Righto. Tell us what you want to do, and then I'll see if we can get a second.
I'd like DA 114/19 be approved in accordance...
Mayor, I have
Can't
to,
do
I have to,
that.
call a, I have to
Can't.
call a point of order, Mayor. That's why I tried to get in early.
You can't.
I have to call a point of order.
Can I speak again?
No,
No.
no, no.
Sorry. The only way that you can do that, Councillor Goodsall, is to come back with a rescission motion.
Can I please get some advice on that, Mr General Manager?
Mr General Manager.
Mayor, can I hopefully...
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We could proffer an opinion on the basis that there was, I suppose, an understanding that this could potentially occur. And it goes to the heart of whether the Council's previous resolution number 1, which says the development application DA 114/19 be rejected. I take it that some councillors see that as a refusal of the application, where others do not. I must admit, when I first started to consider this question, I probably was of the view that if there was to be a move a motion to approve the application tonight, then a notice to rescind would be required. However, we had a very, very long and detailed discussion this afternoon going through all the possibilities. The reason why I've probably drawn a conclusion, in my view, that a notice to rescind is not required would be on the following reasons. A common comparison of the words rejected and refused, yes, it could be said they are interchangeable and mean the same thing. However, the term refused or refusal does have a specific meaning within the provisions of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act as it relates to the determination of development applications by way of refusal. A development application could only be validly refused if reasons for refusal under the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act was provided. Further, a consent authority is required to call a division pursuant to section 375A of the Local Government Act for every development decision. This did not happen with the resolution of the 28th of September, so the resolution could not be said to be a planning decision in the sense of either a refusal or issue of consent. For these reasons, should there be a move a motion to approve the development application, it is my view that a notice to rescind would not be required, as the resolution number 1 was not a valid planning decision to refuse the application, but rather a mechanism to put in place guidance for councillors wishing to refuse the application as to how this could lawfully occur at the next meeting. And that's the view that we've formed.
Well, that's as clear as mud.
Mayor, look, I called the point of order. I don't agree with that whatsoever. We have an adopted and endorsed code of meeting practice, and it's very, very clear. It's very, very clear. I just have to remind people, we've dealt with this now 3 times, this matter. Now, I was at that last meeting, and my clear understanding was there was a majority of councillors opposed to the application. Whether it hangs on a word of refused or rejected, it means the same to me. And as far as I'm concerned tonight, is that we're simply dealing with the reasons why the rejection or refusal was put in place.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to offer a way forward. It seems that we're getting foisted on whether the original motion can be overturned by an alternative to the negative. I believe if council was to move a motion to get the debate started and to debate the merits and therefore canvass the view of the council as a majority, I'd like to think that there might well be differences of opinions along that way, but the council could find its way to take a decision based upon the majority view of this application. Otherwise, we're exposing this applicant to the machinations of our code of meeting practices and the operating environment. Surely, as a group of 9, we can have the discussion about the application and then form a view, and then the substantial block, in my view, I'm not leading you, please, I'd like to think the council would get to a point where it takes a decision on this matter tonight.
Mayor, I've got a motion that doesn't move that might assist.
Irrespective of that, councillor, I've got to deal with Councillor Goodsell first. Now, no, she hasn't yet. Yes, she has, Councillor Reid. What I need to raise here is that it was asked for a report to come back for reasons why this could be rejected. Now, the first part of the report wasn't even required, really. All was needed in this report was, having regard to the above, that shouldn't have even been in there. The application could be refused for the following reasons: 4.15A, 4.15B, 4.15D, 4.15E. They are the reasons why that could have been rejected, and it was council's view by a majority that that was the position that we had to come back to. Now, I take on board what the General Manager said. It's up to the council. Do you want to debate it, councillors, or do you want to go by the code of meeting practice?
A point of order, Mayor, I don't think we can. A point of order, we can't debate it. It's quite clear. Irrespective of what other things have been said, we have a we have a endorsed, accepted code of meeting practice, very clear.
Okay.
Very, very clear tonight, simply
I've
about
got-
the reasons why we took the decision at the last council meeting. That's what it's about tonight.
Under the circumstances, Councillor Goodsall, I've got to rule your motion out of order.
Mayor Thompson, move a motion of dissent.
Yeah, what's your motion of dissent?
I believe that on the advice from the staff, that it is lawful to in fact put up an alternate in the positive. I think it's also fair, based on what the General Manager said, that given this report and the possible reasons, staff have provided the councillors with the relevant sections of the Act that can allow it to be knocked back on. But you still have to explain what in those particular sections you're knocking it back on. We can just not as a council say, under section 4.1, we're knocking it back on that. You have to give a clear reason, and I'm happy to stand corrected by the General Manager or Mr Muir on that. I do not believe we moved a resolution at the last meeting. I don't care. I'm having my say, thank you. It's up to the Mayor to argue this, and then it goes to a vote. And if I lose it, that's fine, but this is my right.
Councillor, I've already put my point of view across.
And I've moved the motion of dissent.
I shall put it to the councillors. Those who agree with the motion of dissent? Two. Those against? I declare it lost. So we go back now. I shall now once again go back to the floor and ask for a motion.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could please, I'd like to move the following. As per the decision of refusal at our last meeting, the DA 114/19 is refused on the following grounds. 1, the likely impacts of that development, including environmental impacts on both the natural and built environments. I probably need a seconder before I go any further.
I'll second that.
Second, Councillor Coleman. Yeah.
Social and economic impacts in the locality, being visual, noise, traffic, amenity. 2, the suitability of the site for the development. And once again, the issue is the access. I can't get around the access constraints. I know we had a long discussion about that at the previous meeting, but the right of carriageway and the access to me remains a major stumbling block. 3, any submissions made in accordance with this Act or the regulations, and we had heaps of submissions, and I think if my memory serves me correctly, by far the majority was opposed to the application. And most importantly, Mayor, is point 4, in the public interest.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman.
Yes, I moved the original motion last meeting and I stand by what I moved at the previous meeting. I just want to add to Councillor McAndrew's statement. You know, there's constraints requiring access over the right of carriageway and directly impacting other landowners. That's another issue. Excess noise and dust will be generated by increased traffic. That's another issue. Increased wear and erosion on the access road by increased traffic is another issue, and the granite base is particularly unsuitable on that road. The visual impact on the rural landscape, especially as the buildings are located on the crest of hill, that's an issue. The lack of landscaping, and that's an issue. I stand by what I moved last month, and I stand by what I'm saying again.
Thanks, Councillor Coleman. Councillors, any other?
Yes, Mayor Thompson. I think I agree with Councillor McAndrew and Councillor Coleman. I think that we did vote on something with after great thought, and obviously when the council staff go to the trouble to approve something, we do like to, I guess, champion the cause of those people that have gone to all that trouble. However, every now and again something comes across that I think is non-negotiable, and I think this has got quite a few different ways that can cause trouble. The road is number one, and today, as late as today, at 6:10 tonight, I spoke to a resident from down there, and the road is in a shocking condition. Yes, we've had over 60 mils of rain. the track, it's only a track, it's a carriageway, it's over the track. So the right of carriageway is actually over a track in use on erosive granite soils, which degrades in proportion to traffic and rainfall. The other, the email that we received this week condemning our remarks after we're doing our homework as well. We're not just deciding not to give this approval. I think the proposed development now is a gross intensification of the land. There's 5 cabins plus a manager's residence. That's 6 dwellings on 24 hectares of land. And he also says, this gentleman, that his property is by far the biggest down there. That is certainly not true. And also the vegetable garden down there, or I don't think he calls it that actually, but anyway, that certainly is barely existing. So the main thing is there are cattle involved with this as well. I own a property. I've been on a property with a right of carriageway. It's got lots of gateways through it. It is, I think, a really difficult. I don't want to stop this DA from going through, but my head tells me to stop it, or the council's going to be at loggerheads for a long time while ever this goes ahead, because with the rain conditions that we're having now, hopefully that'll go forward into the future, and I feel that it's going to cost council a lot of money mediating between the owner and the gentleman that owns that carriageway. So that is the reason that I'm not voting, changing my vote tonight. I think we have to consider all options, and I realise they can go to land environment, but I think that this, with the carriageway through that, which is just a track and the carriageway is over that track, I don't believe it's going to be successful long term.
Mr Mayor?
Councillor Leslie.
I was wondering if I could ask the mover and seconder to at least consider this bit, because I think we've all done our homework. We've all looked at the planning assessment report, and this was also in there, which is that the proposal is inconsistent with the following objectives of Zone RU1, primary production within the Lithgow Local Environment Plan 2014 being, ... to minimise conflict between land uses within this zone and land uses within adjoining zones, and to minimise the environmental and visual impact of development on the rural landscape, which of course is relating back to the primary production. I just think that's an issue that could well be included.
Mayor, if my 4 points don't cover that, then I'm quite happy to include that. I think that's more specific, but I'm happy to include it in the motion.
Thank you, Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Coleman? Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Leslie. Any other speakers?
Mayor Thompson, I won't be supporting it. I, like everyone, looked into it, and I had a very lengthy meeting with the staff before the last meeting. I was looking for ways to knock it back, and I found nothing. The staff found no environmental impacts, so I find it very strange that Councillor McAndrew is talking about environmental impacts. So no, I won't be supporting it.
Yeah, I won't be supporting it either. I think, as I stated at the last meeting, the DA stands on its own merit, and I support it. It fits in with all the regulatory framework. I believe there are no reasons for refusal in regard to 4.15 of the EPA Act. The matter of the access, again, is a private matter and doesn't influence the DA approval process, and nor to me is a reason for refusal.
Councillor Good. Any other speakers? I shall put it that...
Right
Oh, sorry, right reply, Councillor McAndrew.
I just want to make the point in relation to the comment made by Councillor Ring. It was only the issue of environmental impacts was only one of the 4 points that I raised, and then now 5 points as a result of what was raised by Councillor Leslie. Look, I fully respect the views of our staff and the General Manager, but I make the point that the 9 councillors in this room make decisions of this kind. And I probably would say now that it would probably be prudent with every future DA we have to deal with that section 4.15 in relation to the rejection and refusal of it should be in that paperwork in the event that the DA is refused. Because I know we've got one coming up in Martini Parade, which I know a few councillors aren't too happy about. So I just put that as an added for the benefit of the GM and our staff, that maybe it's prudent to have that included in all future DA applications that come to this council.
Thanks, Councillor McAndrew. I shall put the motion then. Those in favour? Those against? Councillor Ring and Councillor Goodsell against. Water and wastewater report.
I'll move that, thank you, Councillor Thompson. Mayor Thompson.
Happy to second.
Move Councillor Statham, seconded Councillor Coleman. Councillor Statham.
I think it's wonderful that we've had the rain that we have had. I believe Oberon hasn't had nearly as much as us, which is a shame for our water systems. I do think that Mr Buckins does need to be congratulated, as others have said tonight. We've had a pretty ordinary couple of months with issues with broken pipes and lots of other issues to do with our water, and I think it's something that has been taken care of as quickly as possible. I know a lot of people have been quite anxious about it. However, we only have so many staff, and I think the staff were working round the clock to make sure that they could provide a water supply to homes in and around many areas of our LGA over the last couple of months.
Yes, Mr Buckins has a very difficult job. This is a very, involved director, and he should be congratulated. I do have some questions, so I'm wondering if Mr Buckins can give us an update in regards to complaints received in regards to dirty water in Wang and Rydal. I received them. I'm not quite sure if other councillors received any, but I even got one this afternoon in Wang by my hairdresser. She had me in the chair and took the opportunity. So if we could have Mr Buckins answer that, please, Mayor Thompson.
Look, I was going to do it at a later date, but you can address this one now too, because this is
Oh, I thought it was a jar of jam.
this is water from Wallerawang, and let me say that this is not Lithgow Council. This is New South Wales Water.
I think it's really important,
And
Mayor
it's really
Thompson.
important that we
Yeah.
make that people realise that this is not council's.
I respect that, Mayor Thompson, but people turn to council first.
Oh, I understand that. I understand that. Mr Buckins.
Certainly, thank you, Mr Mayor. We were expecting some dirty water complaints after the break in the Fish River line, and there's been quite a bit of work to go through the system, flush it to ensure it's been reasonably clean. As of Friday and then over the weekend, there's been a considerable spike in the number of complaints, particularly today and more again this afternoon. We've been in contact with Water New South Wales for much of the afternoon, and there's a larger problem with water quality from their end, which is affecting the residents of Rydal, Wallerawang, Lidsdale, Portland, Cullumbullen and Glen Davis. The extent we're not sure about at the moment. We're in consultation with them. They've got a range of sampling and further analysis to do tomorrow to try and find out the actual cause. There's 3 potential causes, but we're not 100% sure what that is. The sample that the Mayor did hold up today is pretty reflective of the quality of water that some of the residents in Wallerawang have received today. And unfortunately, we tend to tell people to run their front tap for a while, flush the water until it runs clear. In this instance, that's not going to work. We've flushed the system all day today and it hasn't come clear, and it's not expected to come clear in the next couple of days. At this point in time, I don't have a clear time frame as to when it will be fixed, but we are trying to determine how we can rectify the situation as quickly as possible. It is going to be an inconvenience. It wasn't expected that this problem would occur, but we are trying to manage it. We are working closely with Water New South Wales on the issue.
While we're Mr Buckins here, the residents of Wang want to know what the backup is for the Wang water. Is all our water Fish River, is there parts of it come from Lithgow? We need to explain this to the residents because they don't know.
It's a pretty complex system, and not too many people do understand it. And the 2 systems are linked. So if there is an outage on the Fish River system, Lithgow supply can supplement, and similarly we can take the Lithgow supply off and draw Fish River into town. What occurred and the reason why of the large outage a couple of weeks ago was there's a section of pipeline that failed opposite the Wallerawang Bowling Club. They've had some difficulty and haven't been able to repair it. There is a project for them to replace a full section of pipe and up and over the rail bridge. What that does is limit our ability to supply from Lithgow to the villages. So that is the reason why we can't address this water quality problem straight away and why we had to tank water from Lithgow to supply those villages.
So could I say, Mayor, through you, can we get that out to the public, especially the residents of our little village? They don't understand it. They don't know the system. And look, I don't know the system. I've been in council 4 years, and like Daniel said, it's very complex. When residents ring me up and we get the abuse, guys have got no water, and we had no water up right away. I know that's Fish River, but a lot of the residents went out and bought their own water to their own credit, you know. But we need to get, and we have major dramas with our water, we need to get the PR out there, not from you so much, you, Mr. Buckins, but from a council as a whole, you know.
It's certainly something that we've learned from, and we do realise that a lot of people don't understand the way the system works, and that's something that we're working on improving the communications and the way we respond to these incidents. I think we had some issues in Lithgow. We were criticised quite heavily by the community. We've responded to that, hence our response in this incident was a lot different to the way we'd handled other incidents. So yeah, as we move forward, it's a process of continual improvement, and we are trying to sell the message and communicate how the system operates, where the water comes from, and be a little bit more proactive in that space. Thank you.
With your negotiations for the New South Wales, what's the time factor in the maintenance of that major pipe break that has stopped Lithgow water from going to the villages? Any idea whatsoever or not?
The time frame that's been provided so far is it will not commence until December, which is a significant risk to both Council and Water New South Wales if this was to occur again, which is likely.
Thank you. While Mr. Buckins is up, councillors, any other questions for him?
Mayor Thompson, if I may, I know I've spoken, but I've got one more question.
Thank you.
But in regards to Water New South Wales, they're responsible for Fish River. Are they not then responsible for providing information to the community as well? How do we work with them in regards to publicity and, you know, advising the community on a way forward and what's going on?
So yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we work closely with their communications team and their operations group. So there's generally a lot of joint communications, drafted by us or drafted by them and provided. We leveraged off, they didn't leverage off us as well. They've got a little bit more access to communications platforms, so we certainly utilised them in that space. And again, with this incident, they're the same. They'll do a range of media statements going forward on this as well. They're scheduled to happen tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, they are pretty active in that, and really they were quite supportive in that last instance with the communications piece.
Can I add, Mayor Thompson, if I may, during that last break, the information from Water New South Wales is very basic. You had to register to get an email. There's only one a day. You basically had to go onto their website and hunt down where the information was. I was far from impressed with what they did. The photograph and the information that Mr. Buckins shared to all councillors, I reposted. That photograph of the works had a reach on Facebook of probably 10 to 12,000 people. I've had a lot of people thank me for the fact that there was that information there, because the other information is just not getting through. It's not a criticism of Mr. Buckins. A decision was made, and we've done it before in the fires. They have one source of information, but I think Water New South Wales really needs to lift their game.
Apart from a website, has Water New South Wales got a Facebook page? They have as well. Fair enough. Okay, any other speakers? Councillor Statham, right to reply?
Yes, don't sit down, Mr. Buckins. The break in Portland on Saturday at lunchtime.
Big button.
Yes, I'm going to, but I just want to ask one question, please,
Oh.
if that's possible.
You're-
All right, no worries at all, Councillor Leslie, I'll do just that. Is it possible to please add a point to the recommendation, and that is that any persons or families or residents that have purchased water, could they have a
No, I
rebate
can't.
through
no.
not through the council, but through
I can't
the
accept that
distributor?
as in right of reply. It should
It's
have
right
been-
of reply.
It should have come up and as an amendment or a
All right,
second point.
no worries, I
Councillor.
tried.
Yeah. It's not that I don't think you've got good intent, but I can't allow that. Thank you. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Financial statements.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Moved Councillor Ring. Who was seconded? Councillor McAndrew. Councillor Ring?
No, it's a straightforward procedural matter. It occurs every year.
Councillor McAndrew?
Same, Mayor, it's self-explanatory.
Does any councillors want to speak to this? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Councillors, before I put the next one, I'll just get our Chief Financial Officer to speak to this before I ask for a mover.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr
Gurney.
Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor. Just as an introduction to the report, Council is currently experiencing an unusual level of strain on its finances, which is due to multiple factors, including the COVID-19 economic environment. For example, $1.8 million less cash has been received for rates and water accounts for the first 3 months of 2021 compared with last year. In 2018, Council was receiving an average of $80,000 a month for its investment returns, so around about 2.8% per annum. Council is currently receiving about $30,000 per month for its investments at around 0.8% per annum. Council still has ongoing capacity to pay its staff and suppliers on time each week. The key impacts are on the level of Council's internally restricted reserves. It is important to be transparent with regard to Council's cash flow issue. It is responsible and prudent financial management to take appropriate and early action to address the issue. The actions identified in the report to address the cash reserves shortfall have been carefully considered to minimise the impact on services provided to the community. Council's cash flow situation is being closely monitored. Council will be immediately informed if further actions are required to reduce planned expenditure in the current financial year. Additional strategies will be developed over coming months to ensure Council's long-term financial sustainability. The focus of the strategic work is to generate additional income and constrain growth in costs. Strategies will be included in Council's long-term financial plan, which sets out the path to achieving financial sustainability over the 10 years of the plan as measured by industry performance benchmarks. Thank you.
Any? Okay, can I have a mover to the move, Councillor Ring? Councillor Smith. Councillor Ring.
I believe Mr Gurney's just proposing very good standard business practices to council. We have a cash flow issue. He's asking that we defer some projects until next year. I have no problem with that. Given how we prioritise, I did speak with Mr Edgecombe today, and the projects will just roll over into the next year's program. So I have no problem with that. I fully support the action being taken. Shows responsible management.
Thanks, Councillor Ring. Councillor Smith.
Now, I've heard the details and I've read the report pretty well, and I heard what Mr Gurney said, and I thoroughly support it.
Councillors. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One of the things that Mr Gurney just said was our interest rates are very, very low. We're not getting much back. As citizens of this country, we might be quite pleased by this because it's the very same low interest rates that's enabling our federal government and the state governments to be their billions of dollars, not millions, billions of dollars in debt because they can service it because those very same interest rates are so low. So whilst it might affect Lithgow City Council, the other side of that same coin is that as citizens and as taxpayers, we are perhaps you're fortunately better off on this issue.
Councillor Coleman?
Yeah, I just have a question, Mayor Thompson, just in regards to the projects that are being deferred and the athletics field upgrades. Is that drought funding? I know we moved a motion earlier in the year that certain projects were prioritised,
Mr Gunning?
or was that drought funding allocation or not?
No.
Through you, Mr Mayor. No, there's a priority, of course, for all grant-funded projects, and Council has obtained a lot of grant funding in the current financial year. Those projects are, of course, funded and do proceed. This is separate, small, minor works.
I just wanted to clarify that those projects have to then move forward.
All grant funding projects have to move forward. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Goodsall, sorry.
Thank you. I support this as well, and I totally understand the deferring of some projects. The residents in Stevenson Street, Enfield Avenue and Clewood Street are all looking forward to having their roads resealed, renewed. I'm just wondering is there any such thing as sending them communication to say that's not happening? That it's happening in the next...
Mr Gurney, do you want to answer that?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Well, certainly, it's a good suggestion.
Sorry, no one answered.
Yeah. No, that's why I'm getting somebody to answer it for you.
Yeah, no, certainly. It's a good suggestion and we'll do that.
Speakers, councillors? Councillor Ringrider, reply?
No.
No. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Technology One software licence agreement. Thank you, Councillor
Happy the
Goodsall.
second.
Seconded, Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodsall.
I actually had a question about this one. Just wondering why it's written in the commentary and in the recommendation that if we call for tenders from other parties, we would not attract reliable, compatible tenderers.
Through you, Mr Mayor.
Mr Gurney.
So we use the Technology One as an enterprise solution. So we have a lot of different modules with them, and the new agreement is to support those particular modules of the system. So there wouldn't be any other company that could provide that support for the modules that we are using in the Technology One solution.
And it does read in the report that you can do that under the Act. Yeah. Councillor Ring.
I have a question for you, Mayor Thompson, to Mr Gurney, if I may, and that is, in reading the report, and I fully support it, cyber security is a real concern, particularly during COVID. In fact, cyber security has become more of an issue with people working remotely. Going into the cloud, what's the level of security that's going to be in place?
The security for the enterprise solution, which is what this report is specifically about, Council of course has its own cyber security protections for its own systems and servers. For the software as a solution, the Technology One Cloud, they have their own, and I understand it's approved by the Australian Signals Directorate level of cyber security. They have Commonwealth Department clients as well as local government throughout Australia. So it's really high level. It's hosted in Australia. So I'm comforted that there's a high level of security.
Thank you, Mr Gurney. That satisfies me.
Any other speakers, councillors? Right to reply, Councillor Goodsall? No. I shall put that then, councillors. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Proposed due dates.
Move the recommendation, Mayor. Thank you.
Move Councillor McAndrew, seconded Councillor Statham.
Mayor, in moving the recommendation, I note there's a typo in the recommendation 1. It should have 16th of August 2021 not 20. And the other question I've got, if the 16th of August 2021 is going to not be will not be used effectively, I just ask why it's not just crossed out of the list of ordinary meetings of council for 2021. Because the 16th, if I understand, there'll be caretaker mode, then the 16th of August meeting won't go ahead irrespective.
Usually
Mr.
does.
Eh?
It usually does.
Not in caretaker mode. Well, the GM can answer that then. It's what the report is saying that it won't be.
Mr Mayor, we're in uncharted territory, aren't we? Look at the year that we've just had, so we just felt it was prudent to populate the calendar, and they can be pulled out depending upon where the election ultimately lands.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's just a contingency. Easier to leave it in and take it out than not have the provision and move other meetings around, bring other reports back.
Councillor Statham?
Oh, no, it's a comprehensive report. It needs no reply. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, if I may.
Yeah.
I actually don't agree with the recommendation. I believe that it should be the 4th Monday of the month, not the 3rd Monday of the month. It's tidier at the end of the month. We have all our committee meetings at the beginning. It gives an opportunity then for those committees to present their minutes, and then at the end of the month we actually then have our council meeting. We have been doing that, irrelevant of what the Code of Conduct has said, like the ordinary meeting of council has said, which we passed. We've still been doing the 4th Monday of every month, and I think it should be status quo.
So you're moving an amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to change. I don't know what the dates are, but I'd like to change that. That the ordinary meetings in 2021 should be the 4th Monday of the month. So we put that recommendation here, and we'll need to look at our code of meeting practice, I believe. But I say that we move that, that the meetings are the 4th Monday of the month.
Councillor Smith?
No, I agree with that. I think it's better near the end of the month. As we all have a lot of committee meetings leading up to that, and I like it around the 24th, 25th of each month, and it gives the staff, they know, and that's the practice that we've had for a fair while.
Yeah.
But could we get
I'll
the view?
accept that point,
Yeah.
Mayor Thompson.
Beg pardon?
I will accept that point when I move the motion. Thank you.
Yeah. Could we get the comment from the management?
Well, it's council's decision, but I guess the only danger we have tonight is we haven't looked at the calendar for next year.
That's the issue.
In terms of public
Yeah.
holidays and the like, and it is
Yes.
surprising how many you can lose.
Yep.
But we can go away and have a look at that and bring back the consequence of that. And if if we're losing significant opportunities for business, we'll find a workaround.
Anzac Day this next year falls on a Sunday. It's the 25th, and the 4th Monday is the 26th, so that doesn't apply.
Yep.
Australia Day also is
26th of
the 26th, and that is a 4th Monday. No, sorry, the 20th. It doesn't. I've checked it. Is also it doesn't. Australia Day does not affect the January meeting if you want to hold it on the 4th Monday of the month.
Anyway, we'll have a look at it, and we can.
Really, Mayor, it'd have to come back. I haven't got a problem. The 3rd or 4th makes no difference to me. But the beauty of this, I've checked all these individual dates to see that they don't conflict with what's being raised by Councillor Leslie. If we go into the 4th, I'd like to see the whole 12 of them back again to make sure it doesn't conflict.
Okay, thank you. We'll defer this.
I'd happy to withdraw my first motion and defer the matter based on what's been said.
Thank you.
And I'd like to take up Councillor Coleman's comment, though, that therefore the code of meeting practice is out of whack with the decision that the council is now thinking about it. And just we get a report, I think that's a pretty minor aspect that could surely be changed, but I'll again, perhaps that could also be incorporated into this further report.
I'd accept that, Mayor. It'd have to be.
Yep. Okay, then, those in favour? Thank you. Declarations of designated persons and...
I'll move that, Mayor Thompson. Thank you.
Happy to second.
Councillor Statham.
It's a report that states what needs to be stated, and we have to conform by this.
Yep. Councillor Conlon.
No, I don't think there's much to say on this.
Any speakers, councillors? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Amendments to Model Code of Meeting Practice.
I'm happy to move this. I just have a question.
Happy to second.
I think the report speaks for itself, and unfortunately we're all, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, we all need to conduct our conduct in a certain way. I'm wondering if, through you, Mayor, if the General Manager could actually explain what formally censured actually means. I don't think the average resident on the street would understand what that actually means. When a councillor is formally censured, what does that entail? What does that actually mean?
Mr General Manager.
Mr Mayor, with due respect, I think I'll take that question on notice. This is a very precise area, and I'd prefer to give precise information to the council on that rather than ad-libbing tonight. Okay. So I'll take that on notice and provide that information by way of memorandum.
That'd be fabulous.
To all
Thank you.
councillors. Yep.
Thank you. Councillors, any other? Councillor Ring? No. I shall put that then, councillors. Carried unanimous. What have we got here now? 10.5.4.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Move councillor McAndrew.
Happy to second.
Seconded councillor Goodsall. Councillor McAndrew.
I note that policy 10.11 and 10.16 are to be adopted well, the recommendation talks about council adopt and immediately implement revised policy 10.11 Crown Roads and private roads maintenance and 10.16 roadworks provision of unusual materials to property owners. I'm just asking why it doesn't go out to for 28 days. Is there a reason?
Or it's been out, hasn't it? Yeah, it's been out. It's been out for 28 days.
Okay, so any submissions in?
No.
None. Okay, all right, Mayor. Happy to move as stated in the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Goodsall.
No, just it's just updating policies to reflect the...
Okay. Any other speakers? I shall put that then.
Mayor Thompson, yes, I think it's good that there's been much information that was duplicated. It's now been rectified. I think that's important as well.
Thank you. Any right to reply, Councillor McAndrew? No. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Declare that carried. Unanimous. A policy review, policy 9.16, compliance and privacy management plan.
I'll move that, Mayor Thompson, with a question. Thank you.
Councillor Statham, seconded Councillor Goodwin.
Just one inquiry, Mayor Thompson. On page 36.3, fraud control, some items in the fraud risk assessment have been identified as
Page
having...
36.
Page 42, sorry.
Oh.
Page 36 of 42.
No. No, different item.
I beg your pardon, I do apologise.
Page 35, the recommendation is.
Yes, okay, I do see that, sorry.
The recommendation is one policy goes on public exhibition for 28 days and the other one, compliance be adopted immediately due to the minor nature of changes.
Yes.
You want to speak to it, Councillor Statham?
No.
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 Councillor Goodman? No. Any speakers, councillors? No. I shall put that then. Those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimous. Now, Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee minutes.
I'll move that, Mayor Thompson, just with one question, if I may, please.
Have we got a seconder?
Happy to second it.
Councillor Goodsall.
Through you, Mayor Thompson, on page 36 of 42, there's just a dot point there, fraud control. Some items in the fraud risk assessment has been identified as having a high residual risk fraud. CFIO will provide an updated fraud risk assessment in the next meeting of the committee. Have we any idea what those type of, I realise it's operational, but just for us to be aware of what areas that could be those areas that we could have concern about?
Mr Gurney.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I will have to provide a detailed response as a question on notice, as I don't have the document in front of me. But just at a higher level, the fraud risk assessment is based on an audit office document, so it takes into account all of the fraud risks that council may encounter. The context of the fraud risk assessment should be reviewed each 12 months, and that will be reported to the next meeting of the audit committee. And the interest of the audit committee was particularly in what mitigating actions council can take to reduce the risk.
Yeah.
But I will provide a detailed reply to that question on notice.
Councillor Goodsall. No? No?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I've just got another question about committees. Is that okay to ask that at the moment?
No, not. Okay, any other speakers on this? I shall put this then. I shall put the motion. Those in favour? Carried unanimous. Thank you. Finance Committee meeting.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Happy to second.
Moved Councillor McAndrew, seconded Councillor Ring. Councillor McAndrew.
I endorse and move the recommendation in two parts, and equally want to make a point in relation to page 38 of 42, the second dot point. I'll read. September 2020 performance reporting to the Office of Local Government. The committee noted the performance report to the OLG. Reporting requirements have been extended to every 6 months. The General Manager will continue to pursue the OLG in relation to the reporting requirements. I'd like to congratulate the GM. At long last, at least we've seen some movement in this fairly onerous reporting of every month to the Office of Local Government. It's now 6 monthly, and I know the GM said at the meeting that he'll continue to look at removing it completely, because it makes no sense now. Makes no sense now, this reporting, with COVID and everything else that's been in place, with the financial constraints that are hitting all local governments and councils. It just doesn't make any sense, but at least we've got it, at least our staff now can do it every 6 months and not every month, which the onerous requirement was before.
No, thank you.
Sports Advisory Committee minutes.
Happy to move.
Moved Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor Goodwin. You want to speak to this, Councillor Smith?
All I'd like to say is that the council would have to be congratulated, and this came out of the last Sports Advisory Committee, on the tremendous work that the council, outdoor staff and the management have done on all our sporting fields. In one way, COVID's been a terrible thing, but it's been a blessing for our sporting fields because we had no one playing on them and they look outstanding.
It's a bit like the Yes Minister one at the best hospital, the one that didn't have anyone in it.
Okay, councillors, I shall put that then. Those in favour? Yeah, I know, councillors, before I get to the business of great urgency, I know that that we congratulated Mr Buckins earlier on his great work. I'd also like to congratulate Mr Gurney on his guidance through this COVID situation, and the General Manager, because we are being kept up to date with our finances, and policy and procedures in place so as we don't get into a situation like the Central Coast Council. So congratulations on all concerned. Thank you. Business of great urgency, councillors.
I have 2 items, please, Mayor Thompson, to be considered. As late as today, I had the volunteers that are cleaning the Capity toilets contact me and come to see me today. They're almost deciding to not do this wonderful volunteer work leading forward. They've now asked for a drain to be put in at the Capity toilets now for some time. With the excessive amount of rain that's happened, it's just a quagmire. It's mud, it's dangerous, it's slippery. I would like to think that you will accept it as a matter of great urgency so that that drain, which I don't think will be a great cost, can be put in before we lose Mr and Mrs Vidler as volunteers. And the other issue, I was at Taranah yesterday and I had 13 complaints about the road between the 2 causeways and leading into the first causeway. It is pretty horrendous, and I think that if it's a possibility for Mr Edgecombe could have a look at that. I know we've got a lot of priorities, and I know there are a lot of roads that, due to the rain, the excessive rain and conditions. However, this road is a much-used road for many, many people in our area to go over to Borg at Oberon to work. So, you know, I think I would really like you to accept that as a matter of great urgency as well.
Look, under the circumstances and with the rain that we're getting, I'll accept both of those because
Thank you.
I would like, I'll accept them on the process that Mr Edgecombe goes and does look at them.
Yes. And one of the gentlemen, staff at council, has been to Capity and realised the significance of this drain and the needs to be expedited within a couple of weeks, because otherwise the current volunteers are ceasing to do it within a month.
Council is meeting with the Taranah Progress Society tomorrow, so we'll speak about that as well.
Yeah, could I make a comment in relation to the Capity? I was intending to bring both, well, there's 2 matters at the Clarence Perry Park that Councillor Statham's talking about, as a drain, but there needs to be a barricade put into the park because some young hooligans are driving vehicles into the park. So that's another, and I was intending to raise at the next Operations Committee meeting.
Well, he can look at both, Councillor McAndrew, while he's out there, he can look at the drain and he's also...
And the barrier to stop
At the barrier to stop
vehicles getting into the park.
Okay, I shall put those both to councillors. How do you feel, councillors? Thanks,
you.
Councillor Statham.
Thank you.
Any other business of great urgency?
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment on Councillor Statham's, if I may, Mayor. I understand the Vidlers, have they been inducted as volunteers?
Yes, they have.
That's very good, very pleasing. And also, I drove out to Taranah yesterday, and I drove from Rydal Road on the Bathurst side all the way through Rydal out to Taranah, and then I drove the Curly Dick Road. We are in desperate need. I know we've had a lot of rain there, but when the rain ceases, we need a tar truck out there fixing potholes for 3 or 4 days at least. Some of them roads, it's a very busy road, and that bridge at Sod Walls to me is of great concern. Great concern. It's a very, very busy road, that now. We need to get some funding to try and get that fixed.
That bridge isn't ours.
Oh, isn't it ours? State rail, is it?
I'm sure so.
Oh, well, someone needs to do something about it, Mayor. We need to write to the relevant people and get that looked at.
Yeah. John Holland, yeah.
There is just one other small item which I'll hardly be able to keep a straight face about, but the Curly Dick Road sign has disappeared once again. So this is the 7th time in 4 years, and can we please just put a sign there to say Great Western Highway?
Yeah,
It's desperate.
I think that's covered in your email today, though, Councillor
It did, and please, I would like that to see happen. I was following a car back yesterday and they went past the sign, there was no sign, and then put their brakes on and come straight around in front of me, and then got out and abused me. Anyway, I think we need to call it just Great Western Highway.
Okay, councillors, we shall move into closed council.
Mayor Thompson?
Sorry.
I just have one too. I think at the moment the State Mine Gully Road is inaccessible.
Is that the drift you're talking about?
Up the drift, yeah. So 1.1 kilometres from, I only went up there yesterday, that's why I'm raising it now, of in a normal two-wheel car or even an inexperienced four-wheel drive car, you cannot get past 1 kilometre up that road towards Nunes, Pagoda, Blackfellas Hands. It's not our road, I don't think. I think so.
It is.
I was just asking if we could send a letter off to someone to have a look at that.
I'll
or
get
if-
Jonathan, I'll get Mr Edcom to have a look at that as well. Okay?
With that one too, can we also make sure that that the information centre is not telling people that in two-wheel drives that they can go
They can get up there.
Because, yeah, I believe that a couple of times I've been contacted and said they've told them that they could go up in two-wheel drives.
Yeah, under these circumstances too, very dangerous. Mr Muir, have you got that down? Thank you. Okay, thank you, councillors. We move now, if I can get a mover to move into council. The report is confidential in accordance with
Happy to
section
second.
10A of the Local Government Act, which permits the meeting to go to closed council for public business relating to the following. Information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person or whom the council is conducting or proposes to do business. Commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it or confer a commercial advantage on a competitor of the council or reveal a trade secret. Somebody move? Happy to move. Thank you, Councillor McCann.
Happy to second.
Seconded, Councillor Statham. Those in favour? Carried, except for Councillor Smith. Okay, so we move into closed council. right? Somebody move that we come back into open council. Moves to Councillor Smith, seconded Councillor
I'll second it.
Goodsall. Those in favour? Declare that carried. Okay. A recommendation to award Lithgow pump track design and concept tender 05/20. Council has received $522,353 grant funding for the project under round 3 of the New South Wales Government Stronger Country Communities Fund. Council has matched this with $50,000 in the 2021 operational plan. In submitting its grant application, Council was required to submit a cost estimate for the works. Accordingly, Council contracted World Trials Proprietary Limited, who provided a concept design and construction. Beg your pardon? Yeah, I'm going to read that. Just a little bit of the commentary, that's all. Yeah. This concept design was not intended to be final design, as it was the site specific, nor was it developed in consultation with local riders. Council has since sought tenders for the design and construction of the pump track. And the resolution. Accept the tender submission from Common Ground Trials Proprietary Limited for the design and construction of the Lithgow pump track for $530,000 ex-GST, $583,000 including GST. And point 2, authorise the General Manager to approve the purchase order on behalf of Council under delegated authority. And that was carried unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, directors. Declare